We are live. All right. Welcome to the studio today, B. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Always glad to be in the studio.
Thanks, man. I'm over here forgetting my lines.
Man, it happens to the best of us, man. You know, Nathan's got a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm astonished how you keep it all together.
Yeah, man.
Period. So forgetting a line or two, man, just lets us know you're human.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're excited to have you in the studio, man, as always.
Always great to be here.
Thanks, brother. Well, we want to welcome you guys to Buy the Block with Bryan Chavis, the podcast where we teach you how to buy it, rent it, and profit. First off, let's special thank you to our sponsors. We got Bryan Chavis Coaching and Consulting. You can visit bryanchavis.com to learn more about how you can work one-on-one with Bryan Chavis and his team, along with the Multifamily Matrix. It's our educational platform where we help you get industry-level certifications, high-end networking, so on and so forth. You can visit multifamilymatrix.com, as well as Renometer Pro. Renometer has been gracious enough to help us out with offering 5 free rental reports to all of our listeners. You can visit bryanchavis.com/Renometer. And thank you so much to all of our sponsors, Allison's Alligator, Home Depot Pro. The list goes on and on. Yeah. We got so many people, chiming in and helping out that, it's exciting times. So
it is. Absolutely. We're blessed to be in this position.
Yeah, man. Exciting. As always, so much exciting news. You were featured on Yahoo Finance, man.
Yes. Yahoo Finance. So big shout out to Yahoo Finance.
Absolutely.
It was a great article. I'm appreciative that folks, resonate with the story and understand, the struggle. Because as they say, the struggle is real. And, what I went through is something that countless people, I lost a couple of friends due to cancer, and lost one in particular this year. It's rough. So just, for, the people to truly understand what I've gone through.
Absolutely.
Which is, it's not common, the story is not out there as much,
Right.
But, articles like this, I think are good. I'm okay with sharing it. I'm at a point now where I'm okay with sharing the story, and I really feel like it can help so many others. So.
Absolutely. For those of you who are listening who may not know, let me read the intro or the title. It says, "Even a brain tumor cannot stop real estate tycoon and best-selling author Bryan Chavis." And many of the people listening may not know that you actually did struggle with a brain tumor. Tell us a little more about that, man. I mean, what happened. You don't have to go into, lots of detail, but I'd love to hear more about that for some of the listeners.
Yeah.
And how you feeling today, man?
Of course, I'm feeling great today. You never shake it, the headaches and things of that nature, but, that's like Paul said, a small thorn in my side, that is, I'm okay with that. But the struggle was tough for many years. Yeah. From 2012 to 2015, 2017. I mean, really, it's just honestly, man, until this year, the beginning of 2021, when we formed the Matrix and we started, rebuilding the brand, has it really not been a struggle to where I was up all night? Yeah. We're going to get into an article on the current affairs about a guy being up all night, with the eviction overlooming his head, and his 10-year-old child. It's like, I lived that for, almost, 5 years, 3 to 4 years, coming back and having to build the businesses and the brand, and a lot of sleepless nights, man. There's a lot of nights where I was, speaking and having to still produce and make money, and would have seizures in the hotel room and have to go and stand 8 hours, and speak and give these lectures, as if nothing was wrong. The chemo, I can go on and on, man. It's just, there's not much that I don't resonate when people say cancer and being sick.
Right.
And, there's not much that I haven't suffered through, to the really lowest points. You can't really get any lower than where I was.
Absolutely.
And so to be able to bounce back, and to be able to be in this position where I am right now is just, it's just through the grace of God, and, all glory goes to him. I could take no credit. But what I do try to do is, I try to sow seeds and never forget what happened and what I went through.
Absolutely.
And just try to really impact as many folks as I possibly can. I felt like I did that with my friend who just passed. I kind of was wishing that he had pulled through.
Yep.
He had a rare form of cancer, and he was the pillar of good health. I asked him to sit on our board. We were planning on him being around. He was going to be on the board of Chavis Capital, and because he had a tremendous, he was in the real estate development. He worked in develop strip malls.
Yeah.
Huge real estate mind, great real estate mind, just a great person in general. But, the last few weeks of his life, were me telling my story and sowing seeds into him where, and it's just by happen chance. Of course, nothing's happen chance, but, some viewers may be faith-based, some may not.
Right.
But it's however you choose to view it. But I can only tell you from my personal experience, I don't necessarily believe in happenstance. Things happen for a reason. We all have the right to make choices.
Right.
So, how they happen in the direct path, obviously is impacted by our choices that we make. But walking across the street, just so happened to see him.
Yep.
As he was driving by. So he's going at least 40 miles an hour. I'm crossing the street with my dogs, taking them for a walk because I was late taking them for a walk. And I really wasn't going to. I was just going to be like, you know what? I'll just have to come back in an hour or so and get them. But then something pulling at my heart and say, no, just go take them out. So I did a U-turn and went back to the house, grabbed them, took them out, making my way across the street to take them for their walk. And there goes Eric driving by. And so the chances of him going 40 miles an hour, me coming back, crossing the road at the right time. Right. So I let for the skeptics, the non-believers or whomever, I let them, they can digest that however they want. But, so I see him, I bump into him. He comes back and pulls back around, and we start talking. And oh man, Nate, he looked bad.
Oh man,
he was about less than 100 pounds. He was just really bad shape. Wow. Had a bag, the name of the bag, that they attached.
Colostomy bag?
Yeah. So they had that. He had that. And I believe he was in a rough spot. He was beginning to really feel like he was more of a burden to his family, his fiance. And I think he was in a spot. And I was very familiar with this spot. I was in this spot to where I thought, that taking my life was really the only true measure of it was only the only way, what a real man would do. So most of us think, committing suicide or doing things is a selfish act, and we look down on that. But my mindset at this time was, well, I was just much of a burden to everyone. I didn't want this thing to grow to a point to where I was going to be a vegetable, and my fiance at the time, was going to take care of me. And I just didn't really want that to happen. I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. So a soldier will take his matters into his own hands, right? That's my mentality. So, I went to commit suicide, and there was a chain of events, and we won't go into it, that happened. And, someone intervened. It was a group, oddly enough, it was two brothers that would visit my door every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Not every day, every week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay. They would come knocking. First couple of times, man, I'd look and see there was, it was the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I would, I wouldn't go to the door. And then one day I went to the door, and then from that point on for like months, I would bring them waters, and we would have conversations, some long in depth, some short and sweet.
Yep.
Right. So anyway, so I at the time, I told myself that it was the day I was going to, to do it.
Yeah.
So I was headed out to do what I needed to do. And lo and behold, guess who's come walking up the steps at this time? It's these two brothers, the two Jehovah's Witnesses. And they can see I was distraught about like how I looked at Eric that day. They can see something was troubling me, and we just began to talk. And so I kind of was telling them about what I was going through. And I can just remember the one that never really spoke that day and said something to me that kind of really changed the path at the time. He was like, so you're going to go and take your life. You're going to do things, jeopardize your eternity because of what a man or doctors had said. Because I had just left Moffitt, and it was bad news. And they really didn't look at my scans or do anything. And they just, it was just like doom and gloom. It was just like, well, this thing could spread and it could do all these various different things. And so they put this in my mind that this is my fate. So I was like, okay, well, if this is my fate, I'm not going to let my fiance go through this. She's a doctor. She's got a great career. There's no way in the world I'm going to, there was no kids or anything. We weren't married at the time. I wasn't going to burden her. Right. So I was going to take things in matters in my own hand. And I remember him speaking up and said, so you're going to, do this based on, what a man's opinion.
Right.
We've debated before, and you've always spoke on God and how powerful he is. And he's like, so this God that you pray to, that we pray to, you're saying that he's less significant or less powerful than this man that's it. And so anyway, it was the conversation of, that conversation, that kind of changed the trajectory in my mentality. And it was the conversation that I had and spoke with Eric about. And he started breaking down and crying. And he was like, this is what I'm going through right now. This is what I'm debating. And he was like, man, I'm just so happy that I ran into you. And so we had conversations after that. I went to his house and I spoke, and, we had many conversations, and I felt like I was helping him get to a spot to where, at the time I knew it was a spiritual conversation. Yeah. I knew he was aligning himself with God, because he would say certain things and I'd be like, hey, look, Eric, I wouldn't be cursing. I wouldn't be, in that mentality right now. You need to be in the spiritual mentality. I said, there's two sides to this. There's a physical side and there's the spiritual side. You need to abandon that physical side. You can't fast. There's a few things we talked about. I said, but you can fast from bad language, certain type of thoughts, and you can get into the spiritual. You need to come to God. You need to have a conversation with your maker, whomever you need to have a conversation. So we talked about that. What does that look like? How does that? It's like, listen, we don't have to burn incense. We don't have to do this. No. We don't have to know scriptures. We don't have to. You just go to him and tell him, hey, look, I'm scared. I'm concerned. I don't know what, is waiting for me next month, next week, 2 hours from now. It might be death. I said, looking at you got one foot in the grave and the other on the banana peel, brother. This ain't looking too good. So we need to really take this war to the spiritual. Right. We need to do certain things. So these conversations went on for weeks, and he started, I keep the text messages in my phone, but, he started really doing that and really seeking and really turning towards that spiritual side. So if there's one thing, I was sad when he passed, because it was all of a sudden, I was just at his house. And he and I were supposed to have a meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday when he left Moffitt for his treatment. And of course, he never came back. Mm-hmm. But, it was just that week, of the Kentucky Derby that we were at his house. And it just happened all of a sudden. But he was in a tough fight. Yeah. But I was angry, and in the beginning, I was like, felt like I let him down a little bit, right? But the more I thought about it, it was like, okay, well, had it not been for that crossing the street and me having that conversation, and it had not been for me sowing seeds into him, the chances of him being spiritually ready when he transitioned, but were 0 to none. So I take, you can't save them all,
right?
And it's not my job to, but I take pride in the fact that I had those conversations with them.
Absolutely.
I've had conversations with others. I told you there's a young lady who runs my child's school, who had a brain tumor, and hers turned out, she's still here and doing well and thriving.
Good.
But some make it, some don't. But at the end of the day, it's not my job. I have to realize it's not my job to, it's above my pay grade, who stays, who goes, how that all happens. But, the one thing I would always tell Eric, because he would love to give me credit for coming by, I'd be like, man, listen, if it was up to me, I'd let you die.
Oh.
I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to see you in this condition, Yep. Don't give me credit. The credit goes to God, because if it weren't for an agreement that I made with him when I was going through what I was going through, I wouldn't be here speaking to you right now. So give the credit to him. I don't want the credit. I don't deserve the credit, number one. But I remember having that conversation with him, but yeah, man, I felt at the end of the day, when he transitioned, I felt like, that he was at least in a good spot. So yeah, man, it's the struggle was real, and what I went through was real, and all I can do is try to shed light and inspire others who might be struggling with something, whether it be a sickness, an illness, whatever it may be. We're all struggling with something. That's fact. And if I can show that, I can make it and I can pull through, you know what I mean? It should. I don't know. It should expose others to the possibility of anything's possible. So
absolutely.
So yeah, man. That's thankful that the story is being circulated.
Yep.
I'm thankful that the story is perhaps now will help someone else who reads that.
Yep.
I look forward to continue telling the story and continue however we figure out to inspire others, that are going through something. Because again, we're all going through something.
Absolutely.
Our listeners right now, there's somebody driving and listening to this that has a struggle or something on their heart, and it's tough, and it seems to be overwhelming, and it seems to be to a point where they can't handle it. And that's where you have to realize that, okay, well, this is where you have to, this is where you do have to look inward spiritually, and you do have to try to tap into that. And, how do you do that? And, and you don't have to be spiritual. You don't have to be over, in church every Sunday. That's not even what this is about, So, but yeah. So, I hope our listeners realize, man, that, and they do, because I get this all the time about how they love our conversations and how they love how real you and I are. And, we seldom talk about this part. It's always real estate, but it's, it comes a point where you can't just talk real estate. You also have to talk about who you are as a person, as an individual. They go hand in hand, dirty business, dirty mind, dirty business. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Corrupt mind, corrupt business, So, if we can get folks, spiritually yoked, we can get folks in alignment with their purpose. It's going to help in their personal life and in their business life. So I think it's, I think we need to have more conversations like this and share more. So
agreed. Agreed. And we're so thankful you're still here, B. Definitely been an inspiration to so many people. It's always great to see people coming up to you after different events and sharing their own stories as well, and how you've inspired them to fight. I see it on social media as well. People that are struggling with their own, brain tumors and things of that nature, that are saying, thank you so much for sharing your story. And, thank you to Yahoo Finance for picking it up and running with it. Millions of people read Yahoo Finance on a daily basis. So, that's really exciting. Let's get into the topic at hand today. We're talking about staying up late at night. We've got the eviction moratorium. That's
keeping folks up at night.
So we got owners that are up at night. We got
banks,
banks,
tenants. Everybody's up.
Exactly. So if we can get a sleeping aid to sponsor the podcast, maybe that'll help. But all jokes aside, this is serious business. And, I want to hear from you as we talk about this story. So, this was a great story by NPR. Millions could face evictions with federal moratorium ending and a logjam in aid. And we went through and read this story about Miran Masadad, single dad who drives Uber for a living. When the pandemic hit, he actually stopped because he couldn't leave his daughter home alone. And so he fell behind on rent to the tune of around $15,000. He was only able to recoup around $5,000 through government aid. And so he's, suffering from panic attacks and things of that nature. And, they're saying, 7 million people are still behind on their rent, according to the Census Bureau. What do you think about this? As you went through the story yourself, what were some of your thoughts reading about Muhammad, the trouble getting aid, and, what do you think's in store moving forward?
One good question. My first initial thought was, I told you so.
Yeah.
And that's wrong, but I mean, continue the trend of just being honest.
Right.
Right. It's like, I told you so. Yeah. I told you that it wasn't as rosy as everybody made out.
Right.
That the story is a lot of, we're getting back. The backstory is, or the headline is that, the economy, we're back strong. But, the conversation is that we were propped up, by a lot of the economy, some can argue. And let's just stick to multifamily.
Right.
The industry was propped up and continuously, I won't say thriving. Some municipalities, some targeted, some asset classes, thrive. Some asset classes did well.
Right.
But I told you there was an asset class, and I did this. Please go back and look at our podcast from last year, where I said between that 80 and 150 unit mark, or even 30 to, let's just say anywhere between 10 units and 150 units.
Right.
That was the sweet spot of individuals that I thought would be in trouble. Now, some asset classes are going to do just fine, and those are the ones that were getting the headlines. Multifamily is okay. Multifamily is thriving. Multifamily is doing well through the pandemic. And again, all facts. But you were talking about certain asset classes. You weren't talking about all multifamily asset classes. So, they were putting a blanket over it.
Right.
But there's asset classes that are in trouble. And there's even asset classes at some of these institutional grade levels. Right. Even some of these asset classes that I aforementioned, some of these B properties, C properties, depending on their leveraging, are going to, the stories, the shoe is going to drop. The other shoe is going to drop. You're going to hear more stories of struggling. 2022, you're going to start to really see, when the counter, when it begins to shift, the weight begins to shift in a different direction. It's you're going to see where the banks are going to, a lot of these projects are in forbearance. A lot of these projects are in special, I forgot what they call the actual term, but special services. So a lot of folks are trying to work things out. They're giving these operators an opportunity to get the wheels back on. But you're starting to hear where a lot of banks are saying, okay, we got to really look at what assets, what operators are going to be able to weather the storm, and who we need to, basically cut the bait, cut the line on. And you're going to see that a lot of the asset classes that are over leveraged, and a lot of the in between 10 to 150 units, you're going to see a lot of these small independent syndications, especially these newly minted syndications that come in with over leverage because they promise their investors a certain pref, and they use leverage, or they use leverage as the only means, the only lever to pull to be able to obtain those prefs.
Right. Okay.
Versus sound operations and a sound value add play.
Right.
The knee-jerk reaction is, we're going to say we do value add, but the real trigger, or the real lever we're going to pull is through leverage.
Wow.
To be able to get those returns. And that's fine when things are good and the music's playing, but when the music stops, that's when you have those issues. And, as they say, when the tide rolls back, that's when you get to see who's swimming naked. I've said that 100 times if I said it once.
Yep.
So you're going to begin to see more and more of these stories. But, this particular story is talking about two players, and they left out the most important player, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the bank. They talk about the tenant. Yep. They talk about the landlord as if the landlord has full control over this. So the landlord has to make a certain decision. Mm-hmm. Will they forgive? Will they work something out with the tenant who's $15,000 in debt? Right. But what they really don't understand is that the landlord, as soon as they hang up with the tenant, has to then call the bank.
That's true.
And the bank is the one that's telling, basically holding all the cards.
Right.
And so if the bank's not willing to work out, so these, it's more than, in NPR is they just talked about what's on the surface. But it's really, you got to bring all parties to the table. You got to have a conversation about all parties. This is a conversation much to do with the banking stability in the banking world. The good news is the banks are in much better position than they were in 2008. This was a banking issue in 2008.
Okay.
Right? It's not so much now. So banks are in better position. Now we're just really going to see how they react. That's at the end of the day, that's really what, where we're at.
So, I saw there's another landlord in here that's Stephanie Graves from Houston. She owns and manages over 1,800 rental units. And she said over 20% of her residents were behind on rent. What do you think about that? And what would you do? 20% of your residents are behind on rent.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Again, that really shows. See, that wasn't talked about last year. They weren't leaking these stories out because that puts a lot of doubt in the marketplace.
Right.
But where was this story when I was saying, that the picture cannot be that as rosy as what everyone is saying it is? Mm-hmm. So the fact is that there's a ton of operators out there like this particular lady in Houston. Throughout the Sun Belt, throughout the Midwest. There's a ton of operators. Again, the story is in the devil's in the details. The devil's really in the financing.
Absolutely.
What does that capital stack look like? What does that leverage look like?
That's crazy.
LTV.
So 7 million people behind on their rent. 1,800.
How do you fix
units.
that?
Yeah, 1,800 rental units. You divide that by 7 million. That's a lot of.
How do you fix that?
Yeah.
Seriously, Nate. Because I don't have the answer.
Right.
I'm asking a serious question. How do you go about fixing that? Somebody's gonna at some point. Somebody's gonna have to have a decision that has to be made, and it's obviously the banks because they're the one holding the note. Where we either continue or we cut the line.
Yeah.
And cut our losses and keep moving.
Right.
Because the debt, or we forgive the debt.
Correct.
And allow them meaning the operator, to try to get things back on track and reposition and refinance or position the loan.
Correct.
But those decisions are, and guess what? Even if the bank says, okay, we're willing to restructure, that's the word I was really looking for, these loans, they're only going to restructure the projects they really feel confident in.
True.
Areas like what I've got, like Park Plaza and in these core markets. These tertiary projects and these deals that are, outside of certain demographic, psychographic profiles that really maintain really well during pandemics or any kind of, they're less volatile proof. Bank is they're not going to be willing to restructure a lot. They're probably going to end up cutting the line and letting a lot of these folks go. So, there's so much more to this story to be told. And again, we're not really speaking. You're talking about a landlord and tenant.
Yeah.
You're not talking about the decision makers. Unless you own the property outright, now you're talking to the decision maker. But how many people have debt on these properties? Mm-hmm. I would argue to say this article, let's just say they polled 500 landlords. It's probably 95% of them probably have debt.
True.
So that's that. So 95% of them don't have the decision, the ultimate decision. The ultimate decision comes from not one person, not one mention of a bank being interviewed,
right?
A lender being interviewed, or not one, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, no community banks, not one lender was interviewed on how they're going to proceed with these parts. That's the question. That's the conversation that needs to be had. You're having a conversation between a tenant who has nothing to do and between a landlord who probably has no decision power.
Do you think the banks, many of them possibly didn't underwrite for a disaster like this?
Who does? Who did?
Yeah.
Who did? You underwrite and you put in your, these guys got to make money too. Nate, you only make money by lending it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you're going to underwrite accordingly. Mm-hmm. Right. Got to go before a committee.
Yep.
Whether it's a big bank, small bank, there's going to be somebody dotting I's, crossing the T's.
Of course.
But who's going to really understand and weather and predict a pandemic?
Right.
You're not. So, yeah, man, all I'm doing here in this conversation is bringing all the parties to the table, not landlord and tenant.
No.
I'm telling you, these are all the culprits. These are everybody. This is the whole entire. You can't just do half of the recipe,
right?
And leave out the most important ingredient. It's gonna come flat,
right?
So at the end of the day, we're just talking about all the what's in play, and we're talking about what I said a year ago, my predictions. You can go back and look at that podcast. I encourage. I forgot the podcast, but we can put the link in of when I did the prediction. We were doing it live on Facebook for a lot of individuals, and I was saying I did a nice little chart.
Yep.
Based on CoStar's reporting.
Right.
I said, these are the individuals I feel like are going to be in trouble. And, here we are. Watch, 2022. I feel like there's going to be individuals that are going to be able to take advantage. And there's going to be a lot of individuals who pulled the trigger within 2019 to 2020 that wish they probably had been a little bit more patient.
I wanted to ask
a little more dry powder.
Absolutely, dry powder. So I wanted to ask about that, capitalizing on this type of opportunity. So this is not, we don't wish anybody, to fail in this industry. But right now,
we're talking facts.
This opens up a huge opportunity for a lot of people that do have dry powder or are in the position. What are you thinking about if you're in that spot? Like now, as someone looking to acquire properties, what's going on in your mind?
This is where's the deal?
Okay.
Where's the shoe gonna drop?
Yeah.
And again, I gave you my predictions. So putting my money where my mouth is, putting my fund, Chavis Capital Fund, where my mouth is I see it. I know where I've been doing this a long time, and as an operator, operators have the advantage. Yep. As an operator, I can tell you demographics and psychographic wise who's gonna struggle. And who is struggling and who's has more of these tenants like the NPR story has. Yeah. I can tell you. So it's, and I told you a year ago.
Yep.
So, it's funny because I told folks about the value of Park Plaza.
Right.
When they thought I overpaid.
Yep.
Am I crazy or am I crazy like a fox? Because, I had a broker say, at that time, it was a different market. I'm like, yes, that's the idea behind predictions. Mm-hmm. Stevie Wonder can see predictions that are going on today. I don't need anybody to tell me about what, predicting what's going on today.
Right.
I want you to be able to predict what's going on 2 to 3 years from now. So, at the end of the day, man, it's based on predictions, and our predictions have been sound. You've been right there.
Yep.
And as a newly minted fund, I say, that dry powder, be patient. You're going to see some movement in 2022. Maybe second quarter, third quarter, 2022, you're going to start to really see some movement. So.
Going to see a lot of movement here. Speaking of the fund, you mentioned the fund, Chavis Capital RE. Visit Chavis Capital RE. If you got a little dry powder laying around and you want to be a part of the shots that we fire out, as we acquire some new assets, we'd love for you to join the team and invest with us. I don't want to say too much. We're building this out. But feel free to talk about it.
Yeah, I think there's a time, and we'll this podcast we'll do something. Just keep an eye out for what we're doing. Most of our listeners are loyal and they're staying tuned, and keep an eye out for what we're doing. There's we're I'm creating a fund, and obviously we all know what I'm heavily focused on. It's not a military secret.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just stay tuned. I don't like to, if I can't turn it into an educational piece.
Right.
I don't. We're not here to talk about the fund.
Correct.
Right now we're here to educate and give some thoughts on the market. But the question is those who have dry powder, how are they going to react?
Absolutely.
And I feel like they're going to be able to take advantage or be in great position. Like I said, anybody that's kind of been on the sideline watching from 2019, or really from 2018 to where we are in 2020, I feel they're going to be in really good position. There's a lot of folks that are moving into assets and looking, depending on the type of asset that you're looking to acquire.
Absolutely.
There's some sound decisions.
Yep.
To be made. I still feel like there's some asset classes that, if you have an opportunity, you go ahead and pull the trigger on. But, if there's some that are just really not lighting up your dashboard, for me, it's, just sit tight.
Absolutely.
Because, I do feel like you're going to be able to find, some opportunities as far as distressed opportunities are concerned.
Yep.
Because right now, everybody's in position where they're going to get top dollar. So even distressed properties are going to try to put properties on market for top dollar and get top dollar. So I get that. I understand that. And depending on where you're at, sometimes paying top dollar, some folks have overpaid. Some say I overpaid, but look
right.
where we're at now. So, it's just really, you have to have the insight, and you have to really, dot your I's and cross your T's in the underwriting process and really know what asset classes know how to weather storms better than others. But there's going to be some opportunities to really reach out to some of these operators.
Exactly.
And perhaps get them in a position before, maybe one-on-one, to where you can get these individuals. But if it hits the market, then, obviously, the prices are inflated. Right. So, you gotta do your homework. I'll leave it at that. There's those who have that dry powder. If you've got you got a good team right now, it's time for your team to be out there really building relationships with a lot of these operators. I've just given you some hints on who I thought they were.
Right.
You got to come up with a campaign, just like any marketing campaign, and figure out how to touch these individuals and speak to them and find out where they are.
Exactly.
As a consultant, I see a lot of our consultants, that's what they're doing right now, reaching out, using this knowledge, reaching out to these operators, figuring out who they are. And, there's opportunities to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I don't talk about it much, I'm still, working alongside Melvin. Shout out to the Fairby Group. They've been phenomenal at helping us learn, what you can and can't say. We never want this to be a crazy advertisement or anything of that nature.
Correct.
And what I do like about Chavis Capital is that it's tied to our educational arm, Multifamily Matrix. So if you have dry powder and you don't have experience with multifamily, or even if you do, it's a great network to be able to learn as you are growing your investments. And so, I would advise you guys to visit chaviscapitalre.com. You can put your information in. You can learn more about what we're looking at and why we're looking at the certain types of properties, learn our process, our criterias for evaluating what a good deal is to us. We'd love to invite you to just join us on the journey. I think, man, we covered a lot today, B.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Once again, we want to thank you guys for listening to Buy the Block with Bryan Chavis. If you found some value in this podcast today, we would ask that you just leave us a review. That helps us out a lot. It helps the algorithm.
Spread the love.
We just won a little award for being one of the top podcasts. So top finance podcast for real estate. So that was exciting. And, can't thank you guys enough for listening. So, if you haven't left a review, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform and share it with a friend.
Please.
But B, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today, B.
Thank you for always doing what you're doing, Nathan. I always try to give you credit. I think you know that. But I can't thank you enough. Never will be able to thank you enough for, as we talked about this afternoon, early on in the podcast, my struggles, a lot of folks don't understand that, it's those who stay with you during those struggles and stick with you as close as a brother. And you have definitely done that through helping me personally, my family, and just really reviving this business. So, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me personally and my family. And, yeah, man, we're just getting started. So that's the most exciting part.
Absolutely. Hey, it's my pleasure, B. It's truly an honor. And once again, just always a pleasure, brother.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Talk to you next week, man.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Take care.